Discover the incredible truth. Lawyer urgently reveals heartwarming secrets about her millionaire. In the quaint Midwestern town of Maple Grove, secrets simmer just beneath the surface, and none more surprising than the bond budding between Sarah, an unwavering attorney, and her enigmatic neighbor, Tom, a millionaire shrouded in mystery. On a chilly afternoon, as the sun dipped low and shadows danced long, Sarah, a single mother to Ellie and Jake, was finally headed home after a grueling day in the courtroom. Her heart ached for her children, each smiling face she imagined ignited dreams of a brighter future. But glancing over at Tom's lavish mansion, old instincts kicked in, reminding her of what divided them: money. Days passed, and her perception of Tom began to shift. When their eyes met on the street one morning, he offered a friendly smile that seemed to echo like a gentle ripple in the community's calm. She waved back, but the shroud of her suspicion lingered. No mere nod could bridge the gap between their worlds, but another interaction left her heart pounding. The storm that ravaged Maple Grove left destruction in its wake. The skies poured their fury, and Sarah watched helplessly as friends struggled, storefronts shattered, and the essence of their town flickered like candlelight in a fierce wind. In those moments, the whispers of unity arose. People banded together, despite their hardships. And then, chatter sprung up around Tom, rumors about his charitable acts. He was quietly supporting aspiring students, grounding small businesses through discreet donations. Could it be true? The idea clashed with her principles, questioning her beliefs about wealth. Yet, as Sarah and her kids ventured through the debris-strewn streets, another unsettling thought hit her. Tom's troubled past was veiled in darkness, one tied grimly to her own childhood neighborhood. Memories cascaded, and resentment simmered as she clung to the judgment of those who lived with privilege. Was he more than the shadow of affluence she had painted him to be? Excitement crackled around town as whispers transformed into tangible hope. Before the storm, community gatherings introduced connection and kindness. Now every smiling face blasted through a veil of despair. Tom stood at the precipice of an opportunity. The town council was considering a proposal to utilize his resources for their recovery efforts. Sarah felt torn. Those fierce emotions about Tom wrestled within her, a reel of worry tangled with curiosity. Could she look past her biases and pride? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amid the chaos, the question reverberated in her mind: what defines a person's worth? As she walked through the debris, her feet felt heavy, her heart ached with doubt, and the weight of the world pressed against her spirit. She knew the truth: community extended beyond barriers, beyond preconceived notions. In that moment of clarity, Sarah felt an undeniable pull toward Tom. Was it justice that called her name, or something deeper, something that pieced together her fractured heart and ignited the spark of hope she yearned for? Little did she know, as her gaze met Tom's across the wreckage of their town, the spark would light a journey neither had anticipated, a journey that would redefine everything they believed about themselves and each other. The remnants of Maple Grove stood stark against the deepening twilight, a mix of hope and uncertainty in the air. Sarah's heart raced as she caught Tom's eye. He was out there, too, a figure amidst the wreckage, but with a resolute posture that spoke volumes. Could she trust him? Ellie and Jake were at her side, holding hands as they navigated the remnants of their town. Their innocent chatter broke the heavy silence, their smiles a beacon of resilience. But beneath Sarah's brave face, anxiety twisted in her gut. Those children deserved a strong future, a future not burdened by the mistakes of the past. "Mom, look!" Jake exclaimed, pointing to a small group of neighbors gathering near what used to be the town's park. "They're making a plan!" Sarah knew that moment was pivotal. Community gatherings had once been a joyous occasion, filled with laughter and camaraderie. Now they symbolized both loss and the fight to revive everything they held dear. With a deep breath, she guided her children toward the group, her mind racing. Could she really join hands with someone like Tom? As they approached, voices filled the air, determination mixed with trepidation. The town councilman stood at the forefront, rallying the crowd. "We have the chance to rebuild! Together, we can create something beautiful from this chaos!" It was as if despair and hope were locked in a passionate dance, and in that moment, Sarah felt the excitement surge through her. She looked back over her shoulder, searching for Tom in the crowd. He was watching, and their eyes connected again. There was something about his gaze, a longing for acceptance mixed with a hint of vulnerability that tugged at her heartstrings. Could he truly be here to help? Or was it just a guise to shield his own guilt? The thought sent a shiver through her. She leaned down to Ellie, who had observed her mother's unease. "Mom, will we be okay?" "Absolutely, sweetheart." Sarah smiled, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. How could she assure her children when her own heart was shrouded in doubt? Just then, Tom stepped forward, breaking the crowd's chatter. "I want to help Maple Grove," he declared, his voice steady yet soft, sending ripples through the group. "I've seen the way this town comes together. I believe in its spirit. If we unite, I'll match every dollar raised for the recovery." A murmur of surprise spread across the crowd. Sarah felt a whirlpool of emotion: skepticism, fear, and something she hadn't expected, hope. His offer held weight, connections it could forge, and lives it could change. Could he really be generous, or was this a tactic to win over the people? The councilman's expression softened. "Let us work together," he urged the townsfolk, a mix of skepticism and intrigue on their faces. The decision hung in the air like a fragile kite in a storm, ready to soar or plummet at any moment. Feeling the tug of the moment, Sarah finally took a step forward, squeezing Ellie and Jake's hands. She would have to move past her fears. If Tom was willing to risk his image, perhaps there was more to him than met the eye. Yet a small part of her still shouted warnings. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she found herself saying, her voice carrying through the crowd. The words echoed her own struggles for understanding, acceptance. Faces turned to her, and she felt their collective curiosity. Would they trust him? Tom's gaze turned earnest, vulnerability shining through. It was a moment she wouldn't forget. It twisted the foundation of her beliefs. She felt the uncertainty meld into a new understanding, one that might bridge the gap between their worlds. But just as some heads began to nod, a sharp voice sliced through the unity. "Why should we believe you, Tom?" It was an older woman, her brows knitted with years of hardships. The tension hung thick as everyone turned their focus back on him, and Tom's eyes flickered with doubt. As voices began to rise in argument, Sarah's heart pounded. Where would this divide lead? Could trust ever truly bloom among the ruins? Now, more than ever, she realized. She was on the cusp of an unexpected journey, but would the townspeople find the courage to take a leap of faith, or would Tom's dark past shatter their hopes once more? The moment stretched. Tension buzzed in the air, thick enough to slice through. Sarah's heart raced, a drum echoing her fear and determination. She wanted desperately to shield her children from this fragile moment, but they stood there, eyes wide, soaking it all in. Tom cleared his throat, the sound small but gathering weight. "I know I don't have the best reputation," his voice wavered for a moment. "But I'm here because I care. I grew up in Maple Grove. I know what we were, and what we can be again." A murmur floated through the crowd, a concatenation of disbelief and curiosity. "You expect us to just forget?" echoed the older woman, her arms crossed tightly. "I don't expect forgiveness," Tom replied, his gaze steady. "What I can promise is my effort. I'm willing to help with the fundraiser, but we need to do it together." Sarah saw his sincerity, the turmoil written across his face. For a fleeting moment, her heart softened. Maybe there was more to Tom than she had realized. "Mom," Jake whispered, tugging at her sleeve, "can we trust him?" She knelt beside him, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "I don't know, buddy. But sometimes we have to take a leap of faith, even when it's scary." The crowd's whispers morphed into a clamor, the air rippling with distrust and hope. A young man stepped forward, a veteran of the town's conversations over the years. What do you mean by together, Tom? What do you know about our struggles? Tom squared his shoulders. I know loss. I know how it feels to watch everything you've built crumble away. There was a pause, silence following his words. I want to restore what we had, for all of us. Maybe it's a gesture, but it's a start. Then he paused, glancing around. We all know what keeps our spirits alive, community. It was the lifeblood of Maple Grove, and it can be again. The mix of emotions in Sarah's heart ignited a flicker of courage. Yes, right. She called to the crowd, her voice rising with fervor. If we don't at least hear him out, we're putting our futures at risk. We've already lost so much. A ripple of agreement stirred among some of the faces in front of her, the old walls of doubt beginning to crack. The children at her side squeezed her hands tighter, as if sensing the shift. But the older woman stood firm. Trust takes time, Sarah. It can't be hurried. I know, Sarah replied, fatigue lacing her voice. But what if we're missing an opportunity? What if this is our moment to steer the ship in our favor? The crowd's energy fluctuated, swaying from skepticism to intrigue. A woman in the back raised her hand. If we're going to do this, let us have a proper meeting. Let us lay everything on the table. Nods of agreement rippled through the audience, a slow acceptance of cautious optimism. Tom's face lit with a flicker of hope. That is all I ask. A chance to show you I'm committed. As the conversation started to shift toward logistics and plans, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Could this actually work? Jake's voice broke through her swirling thoughts. Mom, do you think we can really bring Maple Grove back? I hope so, Jake. I really do, she replied, her heart both heavy and light all at once. It felt like a fragile seed had been planted in the ground of their shared history. But just as the atmosphere began to settle, another voice cut through the optimism like a knife. But what if we fail? A man's voice rumbled from the back, laden with doubt. The worry crept back into Sarah's soul. Would they stumble again? Would the heart of Maple Grove shrink into nothingness? She looked at Tom, whose face carried a somber gravity, and felt that the real question loomed larger than ever. Could they forge a future together, built on trust, or would the weight of the past prove too heavy to bear? Sarah took a deep breath, attempting to steady the whirlwind of emotions crashing inside her. The last man's words floated in the air, an anchor in the rising tide of cautious optimism. She felt the weight of every skeptical gaze fixated on Tom, as if they were waiting for him to falter, to reveal the flaws she feared could unravel this fragile moment. Okay, Sarah mustered, pushing herself to her feet again. Let us take a deep breath and think about this. What do we really have to lose? Her voice softened, trying to tap into the hearts of her neighbors. We've already lost so much. We can't let fear become the thing that stops us from trying. We owe it to ourselves and our families to take that leap. As murmurs spread once more, she sensed the crowd wavering, torn between hope and caution. The older woman with crossed arms still looked unconvinced, though a flicker of doubt crossed her face. Maybe we could at least give him a chance, just to see, echoed the young father nearby, earning a few nods from others, although mixed with dissent. From the side, Jake tugged on her sleeve again. You think we can really do this, Mom? He looked up at her, his eyes a mix of innocence and hope. I don't know, buddy, she admitted, heart aching at the uncertainty. But I think trying is better than standing still. I want you to grow up knowing we didn't just give up, no matter how tough things got. Tom cleared his throat again, his voice steadying as he added, No one is asking you to believe in me yet. I'm asking you to believe in each other. He gestured to the crowd, the connections woven through shared struggles and joy. Maple Grove isn't just a place, it's you. The people who make it what it is. We can build something better, but we'll need courage, and we'll need to unite as a community. A soft rustle of agreement started to swell among some citizens, their unsure expressions slowly giving way to curiosity. Sarah leaned closer, sensing the seed of belief stirring further in her heart. Okay, she said again, more to herself than them, trying to process how groundbreaking this could be. Say we organize that meeting. What happens next? How do we really do this? Together, came Tom's response immediately, filled with a sincerity that sent warmth creeping along her spine. We can form committees, plan events, reconnect with businesses, bring back the festivals. People love Maple Grove. They just need a reason to invest again. And I can help facilitate that. Jake's eyes widened. Do you really think they'll want to? They will if we show them we believe in each other first. Sarah felt drawn into a vision, a gleaming future of laughter, music, and food in the park, the feeling of community alive in the air. Suddenly, the older woman broke her silence. And if it falls apart again? We can't keep picking up the pieces, Tom. It's exhausting. I know, Tom replied, his voice heavy with empathy. But what if this time is different? What if we really let the past go and learn from it instead? Sarah's heart reacted, an echo of his hope stirring up inside her. But the older woman's words still echoed painfully in her mind. Could they sustain this hope? As the energy around them shifted, one question hung in the air. What would happen when it became time to put their faith to the test? The crowd began to buzz again, grappling with the possibilities and uncertainties filling them. While Sarah could almost see the possibilities, a new fear began to take root. Will we be strong enough? She asked herself, looking at Tom then at Jake. Would they be prepared to face disappointment again? The swell of murmurs began to resemble the sound of a cresting wave, and Sarah knew they were standing on the precipice. With bated breath, she realized the answer lay not only in their hands but also in their hearts. What happens if we let our doubts drown our hopes? She whispered under her breath, a question echoing through the crowd. And while the meeting must be organized, the real question lingered. Were they ready to face a future that could be painted with either triumph or failure? The hum of conversation slowly faded to a hush, and Sarah could feel the electricity in the air. Tom's words hung like a fragile promise. Hope and skepticism were locked in a battle of wills. She glanced around, meeting the eyes of her neighbors, seeking confirmation, clarity, anything that might help them step forward. Okay, she breathed, trying to capture their attention again. Let us make this real. How many of you think we should meet again, talk more about this? Maybe in the park next week? A hesitant wave of nods spread through the crowd. Encouraged, Sarah pressed on. We can find a way to get everyone involved, maybe even create a newsletter for updates. I can organize it. She felt the knot in her stomach loosen just a little, hope beginning to unfurl its wings. The older woman looked around, still apprehensive but visibly thawing. You really think people will come back after all this? She asked, her voice softer this time. Absolutely, Tom replied, without missing a beat. People just need to see our commitment, their commitment. If we show them something new, maybe they'll be curious enough to join. The murmurs resumed, this time with a rising pitch, excitement beginning to bubble beneath the surface. But Sarah felt the heaviness creep back once more. It dawned on her that this was more than just a meeting, it was a leap of faith. A test of collective courage. I'll make flyers. Jake piped up suddenly. His face radiated enthusiasm, and it brought an unexpected swell of comfort to Sarah's heart. Seeing his eagerness was a reminder that their journey wasn't just for the adults in the room. It was for him, and kids like him as well. I can hand them out at school. Great idea, buddy. Sarah smiled, feeling warmth seep into her soul. If they could get everyone from seniors to children on board, maybe there was hope. The crowd began to buzz again, this time with more energy. Little pockets of conversation erupted, the sound growing like a vine reaching for the sun. As people began to voice their thoughts, Sarah felt her doubts wane, replaced by a wishful yearning. Who will bring the donuts? Someone called out, laughter slicing through the tension like a knife. Another voice piped up, and the coffee? We can't have a meeting without coffee. Soon laughter echoed amidst the laughter, a flicker of community lighting the darkness they had felt for so long. Sarah leaned over toward Tom, who looked a bit stunned by the shift in energy. Wow, she whispered, did you expect this? Honestly? No. His eyes sparkled with a mixture of surprise and joy. But that was powerful. Just then, the older woman stepped forward, breaking the spell. If we are serious about this, we need a plan. Something solid we can build on, otherwise it's just talk. Sarah's heart raced again. How to balance enthusiasm with realism? You're right, she said, regretfully. We need to lay the groundwork, and we need you all to help. This isn't just about Tom or me. A hand shot up from the crowd, and Sarah turned to see a young woman, probably in her 20s, with an eager smile. How about we start a Facebook group? We can share resources and ideas, like who can help with food, who can volunteer. Yes, Sarah exclaimed. That could unify us, make it easier. The enthusiasm took on a life of its own as ideas rained down. A community board, yard sales, clean-up days, planting flowers to beautify the area. They spun webs of possibility, almost tangible in their excitement. But beneath the rising tide of hope, Sarah could still feel the trepidation lurking. A gnawing voice in her head whispered that everything could still fall apart. Was everyone truly ready for this journey? As the meeting began to wind down, Sarah caught Tom's eye. He knew, just like she did, that tomorrow would require courage far beyond what they had shown today. Was this really the spark they needed, or was it merely a flicker against the suffocating darkness of their past? Next week, we gather again, Sarah declared, her voice strong yet uncertain. Bring your ideas, your energy. Let us face this together. But as they started to disperse, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was only just the beginning. What if this leap of faith turned into a fall? What if all their hopes were built on shaky ground? The following week, the park was alive with the sounds of laughter and distant melodies. Kids darted between trees, and the sun filtered through leaves, dappling the grass with light. Yet amidst this vibrant scene, Sarah's heart was heavy with uncertainty. Would the community show up? Would they truly want to engage in this endeavor that could change everything? As she paced the perimeter of the park, checking the makeshift area enclosed by bright banners, her mind raced. Graffiti of hope and commitment adorned the folding tables where she had neatly laid out colorful flyers and sign-up sheets. Each blank space seemed to taunt her with expectations unmet. What if nobody comes? She muttered under her breath, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of a flyer. What if we put all this effort into a plan, and it falls flat? Hey, breathe! Tom's voice snapped her back to the moment. He strolled up beside her, a cup of coffee in hand, wearing a reassuring smile. Look around. The sun is shining, the kids are happy, it's a good day. I know, but this is bigger than just today. This community hasn't been well connected in ages. If this doesn't work, it just feels like we've failed. Tom shook his head. No one can fail when they're trying. Just being here is a victory. People sensed the energy. Before Sarah could respond, she noticed movement at the path's edge. A few familiar faces appeared, and soon they were joined by more. Neighbors ambled toward them in a flock, hesitations fading away as laughter and camaraderie took hold. Sarah felt a swell of relief mixed with exhilaration. Is that coffee I smell? Called out an older gentleman with a grin, and the laughter spilled into the air like music. With each new arrival, Sarah felt her apprehension soften. Together, they gathered around the picnic tables, sharing ideas and stories. There were anecdotes of the past, voices tinged with nostalgia. It felt as if she could almost see the threads weaving between each person, binding them tighter as a community with a shared purpose. As discussions fired up, Sarah felt inspired. They brainstormed projects like a neighborhood cleanup, the park revitalization, and community gatherings to share skills and recipes. Each suggestion was met with excited chatter that made Sarah's heart race. This was the spark she had hoped for. But just as the energy peaked, a thought curled around her mind again, reminding her of the weight of tomorrow. What if we can't sustain it? She whispered to Tom, who had been listening to the buzz. Tom turned to her, his expression serious yet kind. Every step we take today counts. We plant seeds, some will grow. It won't be perfect, but together, we have a fighting chance. His words hung in the air, inviting contemplation at the intersections of fear and hope. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, Sarah felt a sudden chill. What if the harmony they cultivated today unraveled when faced with the complexities of their past disputes? As they set up for their first community project, Sarah caught a glimpse of the older woman from last week, mingling with others, her demeanor lighter, happier. Hope flickered within Sarah. Maybe change was not only possible but inevitable. But then, a loud commotion erupted from the edge of the park. Voices grew raised and hands waved in agitation. Sarah turned, her stomach tightening. What was happening? The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by tension. Quiet murmurs brushed through the crowd as concerned faces turned toward the source of the alarm. Is this what we wanted? Sarah felt the color drain from her cheeks as she recognized one neighbor shouting, pointing an accusing finger at another. As she made her way closer, her heart thudded. The community they had just begun to stitch together was about to face its first real test. Would it hold, or would it fray in front of her eyes? What would they do now, when conflict loomed like a shadow over their fragile beginnings? The shouting drew more attention, and Sarah's heart raced as she pushed through the growing crowd. The air felt thick with tension, the laughter now a distant memory. She caught snippets of words, accusations, frustration, and fear swirling around her like a storm. Just because you live in the fancy part doesn't mean you can boss the rest of us around. Tom's neighbor, a middle-aged man named Frank, was on his feet, gesturing wildly. Who do you think you are, telling us what to do? Another voice chimed in. It was Lisa, a single mom from the lower part of the neighborhood. We're all in this together. Sarah stepped forward, her breath caught in her throat. Let us calm down. This isn't what we wanted for today, she said, trying to inject some authority into her voice. She felt a surge of courage, driven by the hope that had sparked just moments ago. Calm down? You call having someone like him in our community calm? Frank shot back, pointing to Mr. Thompson, the businessman who had just moved to their neighborhood. All he wants is to change everything for his own profit. Wait a second. Sarah waved her arms, trying to bring some attention back to her. This isn't about pointing fingers. We need to be better than that. But the crowd only shifted, their attention scattered between accusations and defenses. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward. It was Eleanor, the elderly neighbor Sarah had seen last week, her eyes glimmering with both sadness and determination. We're all scared, aren't we? Scared that we might lose the only home we know. But fighting each other won't help. If we want to find a solution, we need each other. Her words hung in the air. Sarah sensed that everyone was waiting for a reaction, a sign. Look, she began, encouraged by Eleanor's bravery, we're not going to fix anything if we're divided. This park is meant to bring us together, not tear us apart. What do you suggest? Frank glowered, arms crossed defiantly. Sarah drew a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. How about we all sit down and talk this out? No accusations, just understanding. That glimmer of hope she had felt earlier flickered back, gently waving against the oppressive atmosphere. Some murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but others remained skeptical. And what if that doesn't work? What's the plan then? Lisa challenged, her brow furrowed. Let us take it step by step, Tom chimed in, standing beside Sarah. We've just started to bring ourselves together. Don't let fear rob us of this chance. The words resonated, despite the tension. A few heads nodded, hesitant but willing to consider her plea. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was short-lived as she saw Frank's stubborn glare. This is just an excuse to wedge us apart, I bet, he muttered. Then, turning to the crowd, he asked, who here believes in Sarah's fluffy dream? His voice dripped with sarcasm. That question hung like an anchor, dragging Sarah down. Suddenly, everyone seemed to shift their weight, glancing among themselves. Would they truly believe in the vision she had painted for them? In that moment, what felt like a fragile thread of community hung in the balance between trust and doubt. Let us talk then. Face to face, a voice called out from the back, breaking the tension. It was Sarah's friend, Jenny. We can't lose sight of this for ourselves. Our kids let us not be the generations fighting over nothing. As the crowd began to settle, Sarah felt determination rising within her. Maybe if they could begin to share their stories, their fears, it would help foster understanding. But how would they navigate through the pain and frustration already bubbling to the surface? Feeling the weight of the moment pressing down, she steadied herself. If we can talk it out, we may find common ground. But just before they moved to form a circle on the grass, she felt a shadow loom and recognized a face that sent chills down her spine, a figure from her past, someone placing themselves squarely in the midst of this fragile gathering. The silence that followed was deafening, her heart racing. What had she overlooked? What hidden conflict was now about to be unleashed? The figure stepped forward, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It was Ben, her old flame and the very last person she expected to see here. With a face threatening to smile and eyes full of concern, he looked as if he had just walked out of one of her warmest memories. But this was no time for nostalgia. "Sarah," he called, his voice cutting through the heavy atmosphere. The crowd turned, a mix of curiosity and confusion swirling as they recognized the newcomer. "What are you doing here?" Sarah demanded, her tone sharp, barely masking the whirlwind of emotions. She did not want this moment to be marred by a ghost from her past. "I came to offer support," Ben replied, his gaze steady and sincere. "I heard the protests were escalating. I thought what?" Sarah shot back, anger surging. "That you could just stroll back and after all this time and fix everything? I'm not here to fix anything. Ben hesitated, his brow furrowing. "I want to help." Eleanor stepped between them, her calm presence a welcome relief. "It seems we could all use a little help right now." "Maybe you should tell us what you mean." Sarah's heart pounded. She felt torn between wanting to push Ben away and needing to know what had brought him back. The crowd was still waiting, and their interest felt heavy. Eyes were darting back and forth, catching the tension between them like an unseen thread. "Fine," Sarah relented, arms crossed defensively. "What do you have to say, then?" "I might have some connections that can help us," he said, gesturing toward the small group gathering around them. "I know people who are looking for community projects. They'd be interested in preserving this park as a safe space for everyone." His words hung in the air like a promise, waiting to be unpacked. Frank scoffed, crossing his arms tighter. "And what's in it for you? Why should we trust someone who just reappears out of nowhere?" "Look, I don't expect you to trust me, and I get it," Ben admitted. "But what I do know is how important this place is. I grew up here too. These roads raised me, just like you." The murmurs spread quickly through the crowd, some faces softening, while others remained skeptical. Sarah felt the walls she had built around her heart trembling. Was it possible that Ben could actually help? Without thinking, she blurted, "You never cared about this community when it mattered before. Why should we believe you now?" His eyes darkened, but he didn't waver. "Because I'm asking for a chance. And I'm here now. I want to be part of a solution. You just have to give me a shot." The sincerity in his tone intertwined with vulnerability tugged at Sarah. She wanted to recoil but found herself grounded as she looked into his earnest expression. "I think we should hear him out," Jenny suggested softly, her words breaking the growing intensity. "If he can link us to people who genuinely care, maybe this isn't the worst idea." Frank scoffed again, but the others hesitated, their curiosity battling with distrust. The crowd was shifting, minds filling with an uncertainty that felt electric, anxious for a moment of clarity but afraid of what it might turn into. Sarah took a step back, feeling the weight of every eye upon her. She could feel the pulse of the community. It was alive, both frightened and hopeful. What decision would she make, and how would it affect everyone gathered here? With her heart pounding, she turned to face Ben again. "If we do this, if we let you help, you need to commit fully. No showing up now and disappearing again when things get tough." He nodded, the tension between them still sharp but the air beginning to shift towards something softer. "I promise. I'm here. I want to fight for this, with all of you." As uncertainty blanketed the crowd, it sparked a question within Sarah. Would she be able to take this leap with him, to redefine past connections for the greater good? But just as she started to open her heart to the possibility, a sudden shout rang out from the back of the crowd, piercing through the moment. You're all wasting time. He'll just sell us out. The mood quaked, and Sarah's hope flickered in the growing darkness of doubt. What was this tension threatening to unravel? The shout echoed like a gunshot, slicing the air of uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced as she searched the crowd, eyes landing on the scowling figure at the back. It was a familiar face, Greg, a persistent critic of any change in the neighborhood, always flashing his contempt like a badge of honor. Greg, this isn't the time, Sarah pleaded, trying to regain control of the gathering. A few people started to shift uneasily, murmurs of agreement stirring in the hot evening air. Oh, but it is. We don't need a good-for-nothing newcomer telling us how to save our home. He's probably sent here to make us vulnerable. Greg spat, his voice sharp like shards of glass. Ben wasn't backing down. I understand your skepticism, but I'm here for the community, not to tear it apart. All I'm asking for is a chance to help. Help? Greg laughed, an ugly sound that made chills run down Sarah's spine. How about we help ourselves instead of listening to some phony who's likely looking for a payday? A ripple of discontent rolled through the crowd, and Sarah felt the heat of anxiety creep up her neck. Voices raised, pushing opinions back and forth, some for Ben, others echoing Greg's doubts. Her head spun with conflicting thoughts, her old grudge against Ben clashing with the possibility that he might actually bring something constructive to the table. Everyone calm down, she shouted, desperation rising in her voice. We need to hear each other out, not tear one another apart. A silence fell, but the tension remained, heavy and palpable. The crowd was divided, and Sarah sensed that she was standing at a precipice. One move could change the entire flow of this moment. She took a deep breath, locking eyes with Ben. There was sincerity in his expression, but the ghosts of their past loomed large. What do you propose, then? Sarah finally demanded, voice steadying as everyone turned to focus on Ben. He stepped forward, determination hardening his jaw. I can speak with my connections. They're ready to support grassroots projects like community gardens, youth programs, and conservation efforts for this park. I know it sounds like a lot, but we can start small. If we bring people together and show their South value in this place, we can get the help we need. The crowd listened, some nodding while others stared, still skeptical. But for Sarah, something shifted. Hope flickered in the faces around her. Everyone was tired of fighting. They all just wanted their community back. Let us start with a community meeting, then, Sarah suggested, trying to sound confident. We could schedule a time where everyone can voice concerns, and we can really talk about how we want to proceed. But this has to be a group effort. There were murmurs of agreement, the energy beginning to shift ever so slightly. Ben's presence was changing things, and whether she liked it or not, it felt like he might just be the catalyst they needed. Just then, Greg stepped up again, his voice low and cynical. And what if he betrays us? What if we're left holding the bag while he profits off our struggles? We won't know unless we try. Sarah countered, frustration bubbling up again. And we can't let fear destroy what we've spent years trying to protect. Everyone deserves a chance to fight for what matters to them. Her heart raced as she spoke, feeling the weight of her words. This was bigger than just her past with Ben or the ghosts that haunted them. It was about an entire community. As the murmurs faded, a single question hung in the air. Would they band together, driven by hope, or continue to let their fears dictate their actions? In the distance, sirens blared, cutting through the heavy tension, reminding them all that time was running out. What would they choose in this moment of uncertainty? In the heart of Maple Grove, as the sun dipped gently behind the horizon, casting a warm glow on the once damaged park, the tension in the air was palpable. Sarah stood at the center of a swirling storm of emotions. Around her, faces reflected a kaleidoscope of hope, skepticism, fear, and determination. Everything hung in the balance. Tom, Ben, Frank, and countless others were all focused on her, eyes searching for guidance. The previous chaos echoed in their eyes, but this time, amidst the fray, she felt the pulse of unity start to form. Slowly, she raised her hands for silence. The crowd murmured, tension morphing into anticipation. Listen, she began, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her. I know things are uncertain right now. I know we all carry scars from the past, scars that make us wary. But isn't that why we're here? To heal? To rebuild not just our town, but our bonds? Frank's glare softened, but he remained guarded. And how do we do that, Sarah? He challenged. What if these newcomers just take advantage of us? Then we hold them accountable. Sarah responded, a fire igniting in her gut. We make this our mission. We have to unite, and show that we are stronger together than we have ever been apart. She turned to Ben, who stood waiting near the edges of the crowd. If you want to help Ben, then show them what that looks like. With a resolute nod, Ben stepped forward, his voice clear. I understand the doubts. I've seen them in my own life. He paused, meeting the gaze of every person. Maple Grove is ripe with potential, and I stand here today not just as a neighbor but as someone who wants to forge new paths with you all. It's not just about resources, it's about trusts and friendships. Relationships that let us cultivate growth. A flicker of understanding ignited in the crowd. Sarah felt it too. We don't have to be bound to our histories, Tom added, stepping into the conversation. We can break the cycle. Everyone here, including me, has the power to redefine what community means. We have the power to lead with kindness, with genuine intentions. Collective murmurs grew louder, elevated spirits raised the air. The doubt didn't disappear, but the walls were starting to wear thin. Start by listening, Sarah urged. Let us hear everyone's fears, every concern. She turned towards Greg. You had a valid fear about trusting Ben. Let us unpack that. Others likely feel the same. The crowd shifted, eyes darting from Sarah to Greg, recognizing her initiative. Fine, Greg sighed heavily, crossing his arms but softening his tone. You might get cozy with newcomers and forget us locals who've suffered with this community for years. Exactly, Jenny chimed in, standing beside him, her honesty shining through. We don't want to be sidelined. But that doesn't mean we have to fight about it. We can learn from each other. Then let us make this our first step, Sarah suggested, her heart racing. A community meeting where we bring everyone's ideas, concerns, and solutions. Where every voice matters. Together, we can redefine Maple Grove as future, brick by brick. A ripple of agreement pulsed through the crowd. It felt as if they were dancing on the edge of a leap, almost weightless. I'll set up the meeting. Jake's voice rang out from where he stood beside Ellie, his bright enthusiasm washing over the gathering. I can make flyers and talk to my friends at school. Laughter erupted, breaking the tension. See? Sarah laughed, a genuine smile lighting her heart. This is it. This is the community spirit we've been lacking. Ben leaned forward, a smile creeping onto his face. I'll make sure we have the necessary resources to support the meeting. We'll provide refreshments and materials. His sincerity connected to the crowd, and a wave of support began to swell. Together we can do this. Tom shouted, excitement threading through his voice. Hours melted away as they began to plan, scribbling notes, tossing ideas back and forth, their hearts igniting with urgency. The festivities had shifted, people were hungry for connection, and the past faded slightly. Under the weight of New Hope. As dusk settled, casting a golden glow over them, Sarah took a powerful moment to soak it all in. She looked at Ellie and Jake, who played with the other children, their laughter echoing sweetly in the backdrop, freedom wrapped up in innocence. Tears pricked her eyes, feeling the heaviness she had carried for so long finally lifting. These moments mattered. Community mattered. Every fear voiced was another step forward, moving them closer as one. For all we've been through, there is still so much ahead, Sarah thought, her heart swelling with promise. Over the next few weeks, Maple Grove began to transform. Flyers spread hope, meetings filled with laughter and tears, and old friendships rekindled. Houses were repaired, the park flourished, and beneath the shared skies, they built a future anew. In that little Midwestern town, Sarah learned the heart of a town isn't dictated by wealth or past mistakes. It's shaped by true connection, understanding, and the readiness to embrace change. She smiled down at her children, knowing these lessons would be their legacy. They'd grow up not just with a sense of home but with a real understanding of family. As days turned into months, Maple Grove soared again, not just from the ashes but above and beyond like it had never been before. This story shines bright, just like hope. You need to subscribe now to follow along with more incredible transformations. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to fuel this algorithm and keep the love flowing. Do you feel inspired by this ending? Please comment below with your thoughts and emotions. And don't wait not even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of hope. Let us spread the power of transformation together.